Wow, Huples cat. Merry Christmas, or Merry COVIDmas. I've cancelled Christmas until next July because I don't think it's appropriate to have Christmas this year. Lights. A lot of people push lights and various other really expensive flashlights online. You absolutely should never buy one. You absolutely will never need one. If you work for the government, they give you a really expensive flashlight, great. But what you actually need is a personal light so you can see where you're going when you're trying to go to the washroom at night, because remember your toilets won't be working. So you may have to use the garden or outside the house somewhere. So you want a flashlight for that. It's also good for security. But you want it rechargeable. The reason you want it rechargeable is you don't know how long you'll need to use that flashlight for. I have a lot of regular flashlights. I really like regular flashlights for various reasons, but I also have rechargeable ones. Now I go with the Biolite. The reason I go with the Biolite is because I like it, and I don't actually have the headband Biolite for various reasons. I don't like headbands, but I have different types of them, and I like the Biolite because, simply put, it actually, because the LED technology does not use much power. It lasts a long time. It works very well in the cold. I'm in Canada, and it also is very comfortable to use and wear. But critically for me, the Biolite range actually interconnects, as you'll see. So that's what you want to do. If you have a flashlight around your head, to convert that into a room light is a really useful thing.
Hey everybody, Erica and Danny here. We're here in the Biolite lab, and welcome to the headlamp instructional video. In this guide, we're going to cover the following: overview, lighting modes, fit adjustment, recharging, cleaning, and then the setup for the optional light diffusing stuff sack. Let's dive in. The headlamp is comprised of the following components: an articulating front LED panel featuring a 100 lumen flood and 230 lumen spotlight, a single power button to access lighting modes and control brightness, the adjustable moisture wicking headband, and a micro USB rechargeable battery located on the back of the band. On the back of that rechargeable battery, you'll find your headlamp serial number. Use this to register your headlamp on the Biolite warranty page. So when you take your headlamp out for the first time, it's going to be programmed in lock mode to preserve the battery. It's going to flash, that's all you can do. We're going to get you out of that right now. To recharge your unit, connect the micro USB to a power source. This could be a wall outlet, your computer, a power bank, or a solar panel. Pro tip: the headlamp does accept pass-through charging, so you can extend the runtime of your headlamp by pairing it with a power bank, which can come in handy for long runs, hikes, or even power outages. The moisture wicking smart fabric keeps you cool and dry during activity and features 3 bonded layers that protect your electronics from any sweat. You can sponge clean the inside of your band using warm water and mild soap or detergent, but don't dunk it or run it under a pouring faucet. If you have the light diffusing stuff sack, you can easily turn your headlamp into a hanging light. To get started, turn the top of the stuff sack inside out to reveal the 2 inner loops. Fold the headlamp in half, and with the LED panel facing down, feed one side of the band through the inner loop located inside the stuff sack. Do the same thing with the other side. Push the loops toward the middle so that they hug the battery and stabilize the unit. Fold the stuff sack back up over the top. Turn the unit on. Give it a cinch, and it's ready to hang. Wildly capable and simply comfortable. That's the Biolite headlamp.
So that's what you want to do. If you have a flashlight around your head, to convert that into a room light is a really useful thing. You've got one thing that does 2. There's a saying in prepping: 2 is 1, 3 is 2, 1 is none. Meaning that if you have one knife and it breaks, you have no knife. So you should have 2 knives. However, it also is really good to have flexible gear. So you have a headlamp that can be a room light. That's great. That's 2 things for 1. So power. People say a lot about power. You do not need power at all. What you need power for is to maintain the semblance of normal living. In an emergency situation, there is no normal living. However, I made it number 6 because if you are planning to start prepping and you're doing it for 3 days, it would be useful to be able to go 6 weeks. You want to plan sustainability going forward. You may not get help, the hydro may not come on for a few weeks. You need to be thinking of those things. Now, solar, I think, is one of the best ways of doing it. The major problem with solar is if it is an atmospheric issue from nuclear war, or from a volcanic eruption, or from an asteroid strike, solar panels won't work. or they won't work very well. They're also prone to be took out by a thing called EMP, so why have them? All of those things are probably going to be civilization ending, and you'll probably die anyway, so why bother prepping for them? You haven't prepped. Let's plan for port disruptions and hydro being hit and all the rest of it. Let's plan for what is probably going to happen. So a few solar panels, and I again like Biolite. They are pricey, they are rigid, but I like them. They also interconnect with the rest of my Biolite stuff that I have, so I stick with that. There's of course Goal Zero and a whole bunch of different ones. What I recommend you do when you get your lights and your stoves and your flashlights and your power is to try and concentrate on one manufacturer that you like, that's reasonably priced for you, and get everything to fit around that. Then all the cables can be used for different products and all the rest of it.
Use your days to power your nights with Biolite Solar Panel 10 Plus. This foldable 10-watt panel features the optimal sun system, designed for easy setup to maximize your charge from the sun. An integrated sundial aims the panel, keeping you aligned for direct rays, while the 360 kickstand makes it easy to position from any angle and stabilizes on uneven terrain. Get 10 watts of output and power tablets, phones, and Biolite gear. In peak sunlight, you can fill up a phone in as little as 1 hour. Never miss a drop of sun with Auto Reconnect, which re-engages charging after cloudy skies pass through. The panel features an onboard 3000 milliamp battery to store the sun for when you need it. On the trail or at your campsite, capture the sun around you and power your next adventure with the Biolite Solar Panel 10 Plus, part of the Biolite energy ecosystem.
If you get a whole bunch of different items from different manufacturers, you may well run into issues. Number 7 is clothing and shoes. I'm not illustrating this. I've done a couple of videos on stuff I've had, and what I currently use is a woolly coat, W-U-L-L-Y. It's vegan, really warm. And now in my third winter of it, and it's very, very great. I never get wet in it. It kills the wind, and the only problem with it is it's a little bit too hot on some days, so I have to open it up. It's literally like a sleeping bag, but there's a ton of different makes of coats, there's a ton of different makes of trousers, there's a ton of different makes of underwear and socks. What you want to do is focus on stuff that's designed for ultralight hiking. They will be the lightest weight, the most durable, and the most expensive. So again, you may well need to trade off. What you don't want to focus on is canvas, ex-army camo gear. Canvas cotton is something you really don't want on your body ever in an emergency situation. You need to use the nylons and all the rest of it, and wools if you can get them, and merino wool's one of the most comfortable. Again, it's also the most expensive option. Literally speaking, what you're wearing and what you've got on your feet will decide whether you walk out of a situation or whether you die of hypothermia or whether you get a heat stroke. You've got to be very critically aware of the fact that clothing is not just something you use to signify fashion, but it's something you wear to protect you from the external elements. So if you need prepping, one of the things you've got to understand right off is that your house might go. You may lose the house by fire or by violence or because it's not a chemical attack. You don't know what's going on. So you may have to move, and if you want to move, I recommend an ultralight tent. I use the Hubba Bubba and the Elite range from MSR. They work great for me. I've actually got one pole issue with my old tent, but the tent's now about 15 years old and I've got a workaround for it. You do in fact get tent repair gear if you're going to have a tent. Don't get a tent for the entire family. Again, if you've got very young children, you may have to. Get the most expensive, lightest, best reviewed tent you can get. Now a lot of people use tarps, and that's okay if you live in a part of the world with no bugs and no real bad colds weather. But personally, where I live, I can't ever see a point. There's a thin line of a couple of months in Canada where I could use a tarp. The rest of the time I'm going to get very, very wet or very, very cold or extremely bug bitten. So I like tents. Now stoves, again there's a lot of arguments for this, but I'll tell you right now. The Biolite stove produces a little bit of electricity. It functions with very little amounts of wood. I have a lot of wood in my area. I have no problem getting pine cones and wood, none at all. And it works very, very well in producing heat and producing boiling water with the stove top I put on it in about 5 to 10 minutes. I have 2 litres of boiling water. I really like it. I find it very sturdy, really like it. And the fact that I get a little bit of electricity out of it's great. But my main thing is I can keep using that over and over and over and over and over and over until I run out of wood. I would never run out of wood for that. Even raiding a house would liberate me enough wood to burn in the thing.
Meet the next generation of fire with the Camp Stove 2. A portable wood-burning stove that creates smokeless flames while generating usable electricity so you can cook your meals and charge your devices all at the same time. Now with updated thermoelectrics, the Camp Stove 2 provides 50% more power than the Camp Stove 1 and incorporates an onboard battery so you can store your electricity for whenever you need it. The updated LED interface provides real-time feedback on what's going on inside and features 4 fan speeds to control the size of your fire. Integrate with Biolite accessories for a perfect camp kitchen that you can bring anywhere. And anytime you go off-grid with Biolite, you're helping us bring safe, reliable energy to households around the world. Clean energy is all around us. We just need the right tools to unlock it. Discover a smarter, cleaner campfire with the Camp Stove 2, part of the Biolite energy ecosystem.
One of the things is that if the power fails and the system is set up, the TEG system set up for that, if it actually failed, it still works as a rocket stove. It would still function. So a lot of high-tech stuff like this, if it fails, if a component fails, and it's usually an electronic component, it can render the whole stove functionally useless. So I don't recommend you getting a high-tech stove. I don't recommend you getting a heavy one. The Biolite's pretty heavy to carry. It's about 3 pounds in weight. But I love it. I get coffee, I get tea, I get boiling water, I can put water in boiling bags in seconds. Literally, it's about 5 to 10 minutes. I really like it. Now obviously gas and propane stoves are what people think about when they go hiking, and that's reasonable for a 3 to 5 day period. The problem with those is if it then extends into a week or 2 or 3 or 4, you're going to run out of fuel. And you can't use the stove at all unless you have fuel. You can't add wood to it and use it that way. You need to have reliability, simplicity, and convenience. And again, the Biolite stove I find ticks all my boxes and gives me some extra power. So frankly, I think that's the best way to go. I'm sure there's other products coming out and it's worth looking around, but that's what I went with, and I haven't regretted that decision ever. So the last one I'm going to include for new people is communications. Now this can be as complicated as this thing, which is designed for families communicating while skiing. Pricey as all get out, but you know, if you want decent, reliable communications in bad weather in a group that's going to be not too spread apart, definitely, if you've got the cash, go for that. Or you want to go with a simple Fox 400 whistle and make sure people know that 1 blast means come here immediately, I'm in trouble. 2 blasts means come here carefully, I think there's a problem, don't just rush up to me, have a look at what's going on. And 3 blasts means stay away, go to the fallback bug out position, or it's not safe where I am, you go to where we've already discussed it's safe. So you can have communications by sound, and that's going to work most of the time. You can have communications using chem lights, which were invented in a place called Whitehaven in Cumbria back in the early 1970s. They are non-toxic. I have seen children and teenagers actually break them open and smear them all over their bodies and go running around forests. I never did that, but it can be quite annoying if you are using chem lights on a night trail race and the chem lights have been taken by the local kids to do that with. But there you go, you should know where you're going. Now there's 3 emergency things I didn't put in. Toilet roll. Okay, you can get away with not using this, but this is a great thing to have because this also works for fire tinder. Absolutely have plenty of sealed packs of Kleenex or similar, usually the cheaper ones, so you can actually wipe your bum, and you can also use it for fire starting. And number 12 on my list would be coffee. Again, there's various ways of getting coffee. You can actually eat coffee now without ever boiling water into it. They sell coffee bars and stuff. So if you're addicted to coffee like I am, get some coffee. And my bonus one is a decent knife. You can spend literally $1,000 or more on a decent knife. Don't. But if you spend $20 on a knife from Amazon, don't expect it to function very well. This here knife is actually from Finland. And it has a nice sheath so I won't lose the knife. When I pull it out, it actually has what it's written on. So this is almost like a buck knife. So you can get the Buck brand, you can get various knives. What you want with the knife is you want it to be full tang. You want the grip to be reasonable. It's nice to have a guard on this, but this one doesn't have it. You want to have this to be sharp, and you want this to be fairly heavy, because you're going to be using this a lot, both for cutting things open, not just Amazon boxes in an emergency, but for cutting off stuff from the window frames so you can get wood. You can use it for entering vehicles and cars. You can use this for a whole bunch of things. You're also going to use it to remove clothing extremely fast if somebody's injured. So a good knife is definitively something you want to get. But you only need to get the top 10 items that I mentioned as a new prepper. Spiral out from there. Don't be bound by what people like me say on YouTube. Have a think about what you actually need. Do you actually need solar panels and electric light? Or will a couple of hand flashlights for $1 each do the job for you for most of the things you're considering doing? Do you actually need a really expensive knife? You don't. You need a form of cutting. The first aid kit will give you scissors, okay? It should do, if it's a decent first aid kit. But a lot of people don't have the ability to grab a bag, leave the home, and be completely fine for food and water and shelter for a period of 72 hours. They just don't have that ability. And it's a critical ability. If for some reason your nuclear power station goes up 20 miles from you, you might find yourself forcibly evacuated. And there's all sorts of other things you need if that's the case. But in the here and now, the ability to give yourself a little bit of water and a little bit of food and to put a rain mac on is a really nice thing to do. So that's it for me. If you like this video, please give me a subscription or a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, please give me the thumbs down and never come to my channel again, because I'm a horrible person and you know that. But what I would like you to do from this is remember, it is Christmas. Other things can happen other than pandemics, and it's always worth not forgetting that bad things happen on a regular basis to individuals and to societies. And the ability to even feed and clothe and drink and be okay for a 3-day period puts you ahead of almost everybody out there. If you can do it for 3 weeks or 6 weeks, it's not that big a stretch from the initial 3-day setup. Don't waste money on stuff you'll never use. Try to do some camping, try to do some hiking, have a little practice at home by turning the mains off. What are you actually in need of if you have no power? Is the freezer the most critical thing in your house? Then in which case you need really solid gas generators and maybe solar panels to provide the electricity to run the freezer. But if you don't have meat, and maybe you don't need to run a freezer, maybe you don't need anything other than a bit of flashlight for going to the washroom. What do you actually need? Find the best available at the price range you can afford. Try and get stuff that is like the Biolite stove, not unifunctional. It can do 2 things and it won't fail if it fails. If the electronics fail, it will still function as a stove. Toodles. This was a brand new Terry production 2020.